centuries. You don't know where you land. It's so dark in mythology. Treasures of history to be found. Hear the legend of time. All the handiworks remain. Only dream away.
Yeah, we're talking about this guy today. The Slender Man, a tall, faceless horror who stalks his victims into madness. If you've frequented the internet since 2009, then you should already be well acquainted with this monster. At the time of recording this, Sony is gearing up to release their Slender Man movie later this year. Unless you're watching this after the fact, in which case, hello again, internet! I like to keep these reviews nice and dated. I'm personally hoping that the film will be good, though. I'm not expecting a masterpiece or anything, but, you know, I'm gonna be spending money on this, so I want it to be good. You know, on further inspection, how exactly did this stick in the mud of creepypasta monsters manage to succeed them all? And then I got to thinking, Slender Man didn't last because of the monster itself. It's what has spawned from this creature that gives it its power. By itself, the Slender Man is nothing we haven't seen before. An eldritch horror with inspirations from Lovecraft's writing, William S. Burroughs' surrealist work, among other things. However, Slender Man has survived this long mostly due to what other artists are able to make out of the creature. And boy oh boy did Slendy inspire. On YouTube alone, several content creators have made series exploring the mythos, along with either highlighting other creepypasta monsters or creating their own horrors. This is colloquially referred to as the Slenderverse. It's essentially a shared universe of horror web series. I'm not going to go into this web of series. That rabbit hole is for you to venture through on your own time. But one series here is important to this video. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, it's kind of a niche series. I think it's called Marble Hornets. Does that ring a bell at all? Marble Hornets was the first web series to feature the Slender Man, referred to as the Operator within this series. And I'm more than convinced that this series is partially responsible for making the Slender Man a household name. If you haven't seen it, then I really recommend it, not only to see how the Slender Man can actually be scary, but to see some excellent writing and effects that still hold up nearly a decade after its initial start. Oh dear God, it's almost 10 years old! However, we're not looking at the series today. No. We're looking at its spin-off film. In 2015, Always Watching, a Marble Hornet story, was released in select theaters with a DVD release soon after. And with the new movie coming soon, I'd figured I'd see if the movie can do the monster and the web series justice. So, without further ado, let's take a look at
what about the stabbings?
So, without further ado, let's talk about...
What about the stabbings, Chris?
So, without further ado, let's take a look
What
at...
about the Deathwish remake?
Okay, would you just... Wait, what? Okay, fine. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Real quick, before we get into the review proper, I want to remove myself as critic and stop the snarking for a moment to talk about this event. On May 31st, 2014, two young girls lured their friend into the woods in Waukesha, Wisconsin, and proceeded to stab her multiple times in an attempt to impress the Slender Man. Thankfully, the victim survived this ordeal. However, the two were charged as not guilty by insanity and committed to long periods in mental institutions. I don't believe it can be understated that this was a horrific event whose effects can still be felt like a ripple in a pond, with the new film facing criticism as being in poor taste. My deepest condolences to the victims, the families, and to the general creepypasta community, as I could imagine this doesn't paint them in an all too favorable light. This has obviously brought up the effects of the internet on our youths. Speaking as someone who isn't a parent, My advice to any watching is to make sure your children are ready for the internet mentally, at least until you're confident that they can discern fiction from reality, even when the web sometimes blurs that line. Again, this was a horrible event that needed to be addressed before moving forward with this video, and I will refrain myself from referencing this any further. It happened, it was awful, but we're just here to watch a bad movie. Nothing more. So with that behind us, let us finally talk about always watching a Marvel Hornets story. Alright, I'm aware how long it's been taking us to review this film, but I want to take a moment to talk about this DVD. One of the reasons I prefer DVDs and Blu-rays over streaming services like Netflix and Hulu are the extra features routinely jammed into the disc. While the main attraction is the movies themselves, when you add more to the total package like, say, deleted scenes and director and producer commentaries, then you make the whole package that much more desirable. I know iTunes have those features, but I just personally enjoy having a physical piece to add to my ever-growing media collection. So what bonuses does one get for paying for this DVD? Spanish subtitles. I mean, wow, there really is nothing here. No behind the scenes, no commentary track, not even a trailer? Even some of the most bare-bones DVDs I own at least have a trailer, for f***'s sake. I could understand if this was something made in the filmmaker's basement during their Sunday off, but this was officially distributed by Anchor Bay Entertainment and sold in stores with no meat on its metaphorical bones. Oh man, I'm really glad I dropped $10 for such a fantastic deal of nothing. Okay, rant over, let's begin. Our film starts with these two being chased and killed by the Slender Man in the woods. Well, that was a nice short film stitched to the main feature, but we cut away from that to see our main character filming at a New Year's party. We'll talk about this opening later, trust me. Anyway, we have Milo here, whose name might actually be a Tribe 12 reference, oddly enough, who is a member of a news reporting team and has a crush on his coworker, Sarah. Afterwards, we immediately see him stalk and record said coworker.
Oh, careful. Oh no, Sarah. There's a lot of produce on the ground now.
And congratulations, Milo, you've just won the award for quickest shift from zero to douchebag we've seen so far in these reviews. Your family must be very proud of you. However, tension rises when a graduate by the name of Charlie enters the team, upsetting Milo's relationship with Sarah. Because, you know, when I think Marvel Hornets movie, my first thought is forced romantic triangle. Honestly though, I have no clue why I felt the need to list these people off, since they'll just be forgotten about as soon as you turn this movie off. They have no personality to speak of and are just vehicles that drive the plot forward with no other purpose. Moving forward, the trio is filming a story about house foreclosure, and it's about as exciting as you'd imagine, until they explore the final house, however, where everything is still intact, symbols are scribbled all over the place, lazy jumpscare, Christ, and a collection of tapes. Milo and Sarah head inside to investigate when... Okay, I got a bone to pick with this film. As you can see on the screen, this movie is entirely comprised of found footage, stitched together to make a narrative. Most will say that this is painfully lazy, and in some cases, they're right. But there are certain unspoken rules that come with this style. One of the rules of found footage is that, as the name would imply, the footage needed to be found and we need to be given an in-universe explanation of who found said footage and how we're seeing it. A couple of examples off the top of my head are The Blair Witch Project, where the footage was found in the woods and put together by the investigative team. Paranormal Activity was footage recovered at a crime scene. The Last Broadcast is someone using the footage available for a documentary. And finally, Marvel Hornets had Jay uploading his footage for preservation. In all of these examples, we either get justification for seeing it or outright see the filmmaker's hand in pulling this footage together, adding to the illusion that these events could have happened. I bring this up because in Always Watching, we get no explanation for why we're seeing any of this. You might say that this is Milo's doing, but spoiler warning, he dies at the end of this, so it couldn't have been him. This shot is completely useless to the investigation. It can't be an establishing shot, like the front of the building, and if it is, then it's redundant, and whoever was putting this together would have been better off leaving this on the cutting room floor. Now, you could argue that this was someone working at the news station putting this together and just piled all relevant footage here, which would include that security footage. And I'd like to believe that to be the case as well, if it wasn't for that opening segment. That footage is never discovered by anyone in the film. The two are in no way related to the cast or to the missing family, so on all angles, this doesn't work as it adds nothing to the narrative. So am I to believe that whoever was putting this together had a serious case of ADHD? God only knows what else is randomly spliced into this thing.
Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time. Having got a lot, I don't need a lot.
Milo begins to shift through the tapes, all while recording himself doing so, cause, you know, if it's not on video, it never happened. Am I right? Or am I right? It doesn't take long before he catches sight of the Slender Man, and thus the true madness begins. Through the investigation, we learn that apparently old Slendy can only be seen through a camera.
Look, right there. Honey, there's nobody out there. Here, look through the camera. Oh my god.
Huh. What an interesting nugget to learn. I assume what we should take away from this is that Tim right here was secretly a sentient camera this entire time. After a power outage, trying to contact Charlie, revisiting the house, and of course recording himself sleeping, eventually Milo gets marked by Slendy, who apparently blowtorched the damn thing into his skin. After Slendy appears in his backyard, Milo decides to visit Sarah, who's with a shirtless Charlie, presumably about to venture through the forested chasm, if you catch my drift. This angers Charlie, who kicks Milo out like a bum who hasn't paid his rent on time, which leaves him to sleep in his car since he's too scared to go back home. Milo returns home to find Charlie, who confronts him about his stalking of Sarah at the beginning of the film.
Is this why you've had a problem with me since I came into work? Because you have some sick fantasy of you and Sarah getting together? Put the camera down.
Waltz into my house.
Shut up, Milo. Put the camera down.
You know, Charlie, I would put you higher than Milo on the morality totem pole, until you make the realization that you essentially broke into someone's house and invaded their personal belongings out of spite. Speaking of Sarah, she just walks in a few seconds later, and we have a stray minute of these three yelling at each other.
Shut up, Milo. Look, he's been stalking you for months.
To the grocery store, he's been following you to work, he's been...
I want to die.
After the other two see Slender Man and pile into Milo's car, they continue to bicker. Is it too late to replace our protagonist with Slender Man? Through further investigations, we see the father scratching symbols on paper and find it burnt on his skin as well as his family, prompting them to leave. We see that editing at play once again, as the family getting marked by Slender Man must have been so boring to the editor. That's obviously why they decided to cut to a random 4-second shot of the trio watching in the midst of this.
What's wrong?
Rose, honey.
What point did that shot serve? To remind us that they're watching it? We already know that they're watching it.
Just fine. Just fine.
What's wrong, Daddy?
Huh? Nothing is wrong.
Rose, honey.
They gear up to find where the father and his family fled to, and, well, you know, while they do that in the background, I like to take this time to point out how much of the found footage feeling is lost in this picture. I said it before in other videos, and I'll say it again, the quality of the footage can be too nice for these kind of movies. It kind of justifies itself by centering on people working in a news station, so it's easy to believe they have access to better cameras. But that raises an equally, if not more important question. Why is this a Marble Hornets story? The main demographic of people watching Marble Hornets are people around Jay and Tim's age, aka college students and young adults. However, they populate the film with unrelatable 30-year-olds, which alienates the core demographic. You know, the only people that will pay to see this movie? Sorry for that little tangent there, guys. I couldn't fit it anywhere else in the script, and besides, nothing much is happening on screen behind me anyway, so it's not like anything of importance was lost, really. Sometime during the drive, Slender Man kills the dog and leaves his symbol on the window, making his presence known. Okay, now is as good a time as any to talk about this. You may have noticed that I've been calling this Slender Man as opposed to the Operator, which is its canonical name in the Marble Hornets continuity. However, while this creature indeed looks like the Operator, it's clearly not the Operator. Ignore for a moment the shoehorned explanation that you need a camera to see it, though never forget, its actions are nothing like the terror Tim and Jay encountered. Instead of being this pseudo-eldritch horror that subtly manipulates those unhinged enough to do its bidding, it's now nothing more than a supernatural serial killer who brands his victims and stalks them before killing them, who shows up far too much to be scary anymore, sucking all the tension and fear it previously had in the series. So here we have Slender Man who kills the dog because why not, and he used his sickeningly long finger to draw the symbol in the condensation of the window because why not? Not to mention that the whole branding bit never happened in the series and that the symbol itself was an invention of Alex Crayley and held no further significance outside of that, but this movie took this symbol and, not understanding what it was initially, decided, hey, this must be his serial killer signature, under the misguided impression that it's smart for doing so. But it's not smart. It's actually not. It's really kinda dumb. When the trio get to the destination, they find the ashes of the house and an underground bunker with recordings of what happened in the house prior. I'll give you guys 3 guesses as to what transpires in this footage. Was it A? A previous Marble Hornets cast member got to the family first and burned the house down. A good example being that maybe Alex burned the house down for fear of footage of what he did getting out with Jay's investigation on YouTube exposing his actions. Could it be B? An honest mistake made by a family member amidst the chaos and confusion? Or could it have been C? Slender Man manipulates the family into killing each other for no real reason given how it treats its property in the series. If you guessed A, then you are giving this film way too much credit. Of course it was C. The father smothers the daughter, gets whacked and killed by the wife, who proceeds to light the house ablaze because Slender Man really likes fire for some reason. So the mother somehow survives the house fire and is currently locked up in an asylum. The trio meet up with her where she basically just says what we, the audience, have already figured at this point, that the father brought the Slender Man into their lives, which you can easily guess given his actions before the rest of the family even noticed. The interaction ends just as quickly as it started when the wife notices the symbol and lashes out. I honestly feel like you could have cut this scene and the mother surviving and nothing of value would have been lost from the film. Especially when the last bits of the movie completely ignore that scene, as the trio are out of options and attempt to make a last stand against the Slender Man. It goes about as well as you'd think.
Chickens!
Holy mustard!
Hey!
All that hard work.
We end with another clip that has no place in the in-universe investigation, though at this point are you really that shocked, where the husband and wife just bought a camera with a student film in there, and it's implied that the tape is from the Marble Hornets production, which is really the only connection this movie has to the web series, and with that, our movie ends. Wait a minute, hold on a second. Who sold him that camera? No, seriously, who sold him that camera knowing that there's a very dangerous tape inside of there? Was it Alex? If so, why would he give away a tape that might have incriminating footage of what he did? Or was this after Alex was killed? If that's the case, then who sold the man potential evidence into Alex's disappearance? Was it the police? Was it someone who looted Alex's house? It couldn't have been Jay, because he would have made sure to upload everything to the channel. So why would he just give away another piece of the puzzle that he's been obsessed with for the entirety of the series? Or wait, could this have been Tim? If so, why in the 7th circle of hell would he give away something so dangerous and allow the monster to spread? Especially given the fact that his whole dilemma from the series is that he brought the monster into his friend's life with his presence. Were you really that strapped for cash there, Tim? Hope the weight of the souls you just damned was worth the $10 the camera most likely got you. It must have been a damn good grand slam it got you. Seriously, who the hell wrote this goddamn movie in the first place?
guess all I know is to take my medicine. I always take my medicine. And I feel fantastic, and I never felt as good as how I do right now, except for maybe when I...
Dear Lord, I think that last book took several years off my life expectancy. So that was Always Watching, a Marble Hornets story. Sad to say, but this was really, really bad. The camera work was alright, and some of the effects were admittedly pretty good, but the movie was more than infuriating. The editing is a mess, the acting is poor, and the writing is generic Z-grade schlock. My biggest complaint with this movie is that it's called A Marble Hornets Story. Yes, my chief complaint is the name. Without the baggage of the web series, this is just a forgettable piece of nothing. However, as a side story to the web series, it was given incredibly big shoes to fill off the bat. I honestly don't think this movie even comes close to being the same standards of quality that series set. As a Marble Hornets movie, it's riddled with inconsistencies that pile up, making me believe the creators of the movie didn't even watch the series before making this, and if they did, then they really didn't get Marble Hornets. I'm not ready to call that the absolute truth, since I have no clue what the production was like, but it definitely gives off that impression. If you want to see the Slender Man done right, then just go watch the Marble Hornets series. The effects aren't as polished, but the writing more than makes up for any of the shortcomings it might have. Plus, the series is completely free to watch on the YouTube channel, so the only thing you'd be wasting is time. That, and, as stated earlier, there is a whole shared universe of web series centered around this creature. Any one of them might tickle your fancy. Might I recommend Tribe 12? Even though this movie was a disappointment, I won't let it affect my judgment of the new movie. Who knows, it could be good. We got more than enough examples of Slender Man being a great engine for stories. It is always important though to remember the bad stories as well and learn from them. I know I learned something here, that nobody is going to be always watching. I really wish I could have found the budget for this movie. It would have made this last point all the better. When your high-budget horror movie is routinely beaten in quality by a web series production made with a shoestring budget in comparison, there is one phrase that you people watching should remember going forward in your creative endeavors. Sometimes less truly is more. With that being said, this has been TheOshawott17. Good night, stay safe, and if you find a collection of mysterious tapes, don't hesitate to light them ablaze. The Slender Man, a tall, faceless horror who stalks its victims into madness. Madness?